The fact that you can't smell bacon, but you can smell bacon.
Well, I can smell bacon, but I don't know if I can really smell the bacon. If it's just my mind playing tricks on me because I know it's right out this door.
You sound like all these people complaining about having like the whole after effects of COVID. Like you really do. That's what you sound
I
like.
I don't know. I haven't paid attention to any of that shit.
Mm. Well, like so many days after you get the COVID, you can't smell anything, and it's kind of like, well, I dealt with that with sinus infections and shit for quite a while. Like I get sinus infections about every other year, and
Neti pot, dude.
uh,
Seriously, use a neti
most
pot.
most of the
That's why I
time,
stopped getting sinus infections. I'd
well,
get them almost every year until I started using it.
I have a different strategy. I changed it up, but I don't get them. I haven't had them in a couple of years, so maybe I'm due. But most of the time, it was just like a blockage that was up here that got infected, and you could always tell because you could feel the shit in the back of your throat where the sinuses normally drain, and you start getting sick, the chills, get a little bit of fever, and whenever I would manage to sit in the shower long enough, I would just spit out a nice green loogie. This motherfucker's like it's got a thick head, and well, you don't actually spit it out. You kind of like loosen it up with the steam, and you pull it out, and it's like it's attached to your fucking brain somewhere. It just you can feel it coming out, and it's just like oh, and mm. and then eventually at some point you hawk up like a hard one that like coagulated up in your fucking sinus cavity.
Oh, what they call those? Like sneeze peanuts.
It's fucking sneeze peanuts, but
Yeah,
uh,
sneeze peanuts.
yeah. So yeah, that
So
what?
no, no, okay, that's it.
No, I'm talking about. I was transitioning to.
Oh, we're recording. Cool.
Well, we've been live for a minute, but
Oh well, hi, I'm high.
thank everybody for tuning into this show. I'm Jake,
I'm high.
and this is the Jake and High Show. So,
Surgery this last week and another surgery. This should be the last one.
should be.
Really strong drugs right now.
Uh-huh. Is there a is there a pink elephant in your room somewhere?
No, no, my wife chased everything out and closed the door for me.
It's not strong enough then. Yeah. So, take us through your twittering the past week. Like I said, last week I did allude on the show that I started following you on Twitter. It was getting a bit annoying. Put my phone down for like an hour. I come up and there's like 20 fucking threads that you're just mowing through. So just give us a little synopsis of what's on the Twitterati world.
All right, now at least where I'm at. I mean, there's the usual, you know, back and forth with all the politics stuff, but as I said, I'm kind of trying to lean away from politics, and
Mm-hmm.
well, it was hard for anybody on Twitter to not kind of trip into what's been going on in the stock market because now we've got people who you know never looked at you know any of the stuff and don't know what the Dow Jones is and kind of are stock market experts. But so last week, Reddit, a group on Reddit, which I've actually been a member of for quite a few years, um, kind of got together and fucked over some hedge funds, which yeah, I find that amusing. I think there can be some long-term implications of that, though, that they're maybe not thinking about. But yeah, it's pretty much that and surgery is what my last week's been. Surgery prep, doctor's appointments.
One of the other things
Yeah.
that you were fucking with on Twitter that I seen a lot of the stuff was, and I wanted a better explanation. I assume I probably could have looked it up on Google, but I was waiting for you because I knew you would give me a lot better definition. You wouldn't give me a textbook definition, but I've seen you tweeting a lot of things about voluntarism. Uh,
Voluntarism is basically um, libertarianism's libertarianism's next kind of step forward, which is purely solely voluntary interactions. So, any interactions you have with others is voluntary consent. So, if I want my car fixed, um, I go to whoever fixes the cars and say, "Hey, fix my car, and I'll give you, I'll trade you whatever." And we come up with whatever trade agreement, and we do that on a purely voluntary basis. Versus, I guess a better example would be something like, we need roads or in our little area that we've staked out. So we get together and we find a company and we contract with them and we come up with a agreement, and they make our roads instead of the government stealing our money to build roads and do a bunch of other stupid shit.
so
So I
how?
think the only voluntarism stuff is that nonprofit organization, which is it's basically a charitable organization,
Mhm.
501c3 that they do. Um, well, they go out and do good deeds. What needs to be done, they go do it versus waiting on the government to step in and tax other people and do it. So
Right. That's what I was gonna say. So it seems like voluntarism is more along. It's a it's a special emphasis on charitable stuff. Like,
well, no, not necessarily that. I mean, those tweets specifically, the tweets that I was retweeting and sharing and stuff were voluntarism in action, which is the nonprofit group. And that, again, because they're nonprofit, that's what their purpose is charitable causes and things like that versus roads. But voluntarism in principle is just voluntary interaction for everything.
hmm
You know, I decide I want your cat, and you say no, you can't have my cat. You know, but then I say, well, here, let me give you these two kittens and a case of beer,
hmm
and you say, sure, that's a great deal. Those are voluntary interactions versus me complaining to the government that you've got cats and you've got three cats and you're only supposed to be allowed to have two cats, and animal control comes and takes away one cat, and then I go get it from the shelter
hmm
or something. I don't know. My examples are a little bit fucked up right now because,
No,
well,
that's fine.
I'm high.
Follow up question is, why is where libertarianism now going into? I mean, I'm assuming not everybody is.
libertarianism now isn't going that's voluntarism is a more of a form of anarchy.
hmm
Just you anarchy is just absence of leaders.
hmm
And so the anarchist utopia would be pure, a voluntarism of a voluntary society. And that's something I think would be beautiful. Now, again, that's in my opinion is a utopian ideal that won't really ever happen. um, so I kind of my next step would be minarchism, which is minimal government, just the basic frameworks, you know national defense, uh, legal system, and law enforcement kind of stuff. But
hmm
but yeah, voluntarism would be wonderful if we could ever get to that point. Except there's just too many people who are dependent on the government to ever for that to really happen without some big event, in my opinion.
I will say, like, I agree with that last statement, but I will segue into another, I guess, pillar. It's not that a lot of people are dependent on the government. It's that you have the people that are dependent on the government, but you also have the people that feel that, because there's a lot of things the government doesn't do. There's a lot of things they do, but there are people that feel like the government needs to be more involved with their personal life and your personal life. So it's not necessarily the government, they're dependent. I'm sure I can think of people off the top of my head that don't take government handouts. They're not withdrawing from Social Security or Medicaid or Medicare or whatever. They have a job, they pay their taxes, et cetera, et cetera. They don't call the police, and they never had a house fire. So it's not like but they just feel like maybe, and that's, I guess that's probably another tertiary thing off of that pillar. The secondary and tertiary thing is that they think, so maybe let's just put myself in the situation, not that I believe this way, but this is how they believe. They believe essentially, well, you and I believe the same way, as in, like, you make your own decisions, you choose your own career, choose your own adventure. Do I go left or right, turn to page 42, turn to page 95? But these people feel like, even though they are in the driver's seat of their life, they feel like there needs to be government action for other people. And maybe it's just they're just blind. They don't realize, well, at some point that boot's going to be on your neck too. Or maybe they're just, they're either ignorant or they're just stupid, I guess. Or
they don't care.
Or they don't care. I guess
they think they're the types that think, oh, well, I'm not doing anything wrong. I've got nothing to hide, so there's no reason why, people shouldn't allow the government to snoop on their phones or whatever.
Yeah, they don't think of that shit, and they would gladly hand away their liberties for whatever reason. Some of them
for their perceived security.
Yeah.
And the reality is they're not any more secure.
Yeah.
In fact, they're probably less secure.
I would agree. I would go with was it Benjamin? Old Benjamin saying people that want to sacrifice their liberty for freedom, or sacrifice their freedom for security, excuse me. Their freedom for security don't deserve either. I mean, that's kind of how I feel. Like, that's, I don't know. It's difficult to tell somebody that if you don't like the way things are going, to leave. I mean, they always have that right. They can leave, and they can go move to Somalia, or they can go move to, I don't know, Argentina or Venezuela or some shit, and see how stuff is there. Okay, you want government controlling big business? Here you go. You want government doing this? Here you go. But yeah.
Like, that never has any negative repercussions.
No, not at all. So you did mention the Wall Street Bets Twitter or Reddit thread, yeah.
Yep.
A lot of that shit going on. So I wouldn't say that a lot of the people, I couldn't give you a number, but some of those people are just as informed as I am, and I quit playing the stocks three years ago, about 3 years, a little less than 3 years ago. So between 2 and 3 years ago, I quit playing the stocks. I had Robinhood app on my phone. A mutual acquaintance of us put me on it, and I made some money and I lost some money. And I got to a point where I just could not watch my phone.
Do you still have your Robinhood account?
I have it, but it's the app is not on my phone. I have not had any money in Robinhood between 2 and 3 years.
Just do me a favor then. Just close the account just to make the point, because fuck those guys.
Yeah, I will. I have to remember my password. I haven't used it that long. You know what I mean? So because I haven't used it in that long, I have to install the app, then I have to go to my email to do a password recovery. I mean, for you, baby, I'll do it, but it's a pain in the ass. But I can tell you that there was two things that turned me off about stocks, and one of them wasn't necessarily, okay, there was three. I lied, three. There was a year that I made an insane amount of money. I made like $2,000. Okay. Paid my capital gains tax, went into the next year, and that next year, I think that was 2017, Trump was doing a lot of tweeting. I mean, like he was doing a lot of tweeting every other year he was in office, but I was losing money. I was losing money because he would say something like, "Oh, we're gonna fucking do this," and a lot of the market speculation involves around the news. Oil tanker captured in Saudi Arabia or some shit. Not that that happened, but things like that, and then all of a sudden oil prices do this or they do that, or something happens with gold bonds and then prices in gold. And then it's weird is because sometimes that affects other parts of the market, like maybe something that's not even related. So then maybe the tech side would react to that too. And so I was dealing with like a whole year of like, you know, former President Trump tweeting things, and that kind of got to me. The second thing that got to me, well, the first I lost money. The second thing was some of it was due to the president tweeting. The third thing that happened to me was I began to realize, despite the fact I have this app on my phone where I can trade stocks, I don't have to pay a commission fee. I could buy 10 stocks of this. It won't cost me shit. I can sell 20, stocks of that. It won't cost me a damn thing. The thing that killed me was there was two policies, and one is a day trading policy, I guess, by the SEC. Not sure who put it in, but if I wanted to day trade, meaning if I wanted to, let's say you had a stock, if I wanted to buy and sell your stock throughout the day, because stocks very rarely stay like on a plateau throughout the day. They may go up a couple cents, they may go down a couple cents, they may go up some dollars, tens of dollars, hundreds of dollars. But to day trade's basically where you're trading that same stock more than 5 times in a week. Or no, more than 5 times in a day. I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Let me back it up. Basically, I traded your stock. Like I bought your stock.
You can't make more than 3 trades of the same stock in a 5-day period.
Well, no, you can. But it was like this. It was like I was considered a day trader if, let's say I bought your stock in the morning, it went up, right? I sold your stock when it went up, and then later on that day I bought. So if I had 2 buys or 2 sells in a day, that was 1 day trade, and I could not have 5 of those in a trading week. Whether the
3 of them.
Whatever. I don't know. But in order to be a day trader, in order to do that, you have to have $25,000 of like liquid assets. You have to have you have to take $25,000 worth of chips and set it on a fucking poker table, and then you can day trade with the other money you have. Which to me, that's kind of bullshit. Like I understand there's maybe reasons that, but to me, I was like, yo, this is, I was talking to our mutual friend, like, dude, this is bullshit. Like these guys could take out a loan. Like, what's stopping me from taking out an unsecured loan from a bank for 25 grand, setting it aside in here, and then taking the extra $600 or $700 that I have from my paycheck from this period of the month because I'm single and I have nothing to do except pay like.
I don't think you need to have 25,000 just sitting in cash there. You need to have that on deposit. So if you have 25,000 in equities, then you're okay unless you then drop below that point.
No, because the equities would be different. Like the equities would be like, that's different. That'd be like you had $25,000 in shares of something, and you told, whatever finance company that is your collateral, because you still have to have $25,000 in liquid assets. Like you may physically not have it, but you're actually getting a float from the bank, because the bank will have the $25,000 on hand, which you in turn put into another. So you may have, $25,000 in like some long-term stock. It probably gains like 2% every year, just enough to beat inflation or whatever. And you tell the bank that's your collateral, and then they hand you 20. Like, whereas I'm getting an unsecured loan, so that interest rate I'm going to pay on that $25,000 is going to be like anywhere from 9 to 12% interest. But that
right. So if you've got 25,000, let's say you've got $25,000 worth of Tesla stock, sure. which is a fairly volatile stock, relatively. With that in the account, you can day trade until that Tesla stock drops down and the value is no longer 25,000.
I
Then
would
then you'll get hit.
I would assume you're correct about that. I will assume you're correct about the 3 versus 5, and I will assume you're correct about what you said too. But
See,
what I'm saying is, I think it's bullshit. Like, why, if I'm trading, and I could be day trading penny stocks, stocks that are like a dollar, sub dollar. Why do I mean I understand if I'm trading big boy stocks, well in the hundreds, well in the thousands, well in the 10,000s, and now you could trade, fractions of stock too. So you could get in the big boy stocks, and you could just own a fraction of the stock, which is essentially could be a penny stock. But why can't I day trade penny stocks when the amount of money I may be
it
responsible? What,
it was a rule implemented after the dot-com bubble burst.
well, what I think
Or
is, I think it's when I looked at that, when I looked at it, and a homeboy was explaining the rules to me, it was like, you have a lot of people that have, you want to be a barber, you want to cut hair, you want to trim beards, you want to make a pretty penny, you have to go get a license. So you have to go through so there's like it's like a
which is
gatekeep.
bullshit, by the way.
I agree. I completely agree. And so there's like a thing. You have to go through this thing to get a fucking license to drive a cab, to fucking cut hair, to fucking do people's makeup, their hair and their nails and their toes or whatever. And it's like it keeps people out of that commerce. And to me,
Well, okay. It does. It is like gatekeeping in a sense, but it was implemented because a lot of people were jumping in on the whole dot-com bubble. And see, that rule never affected me because when I was day trading, it was prior to that rule being implemented. And then I had stopped all that when I worked for a broker dealer.
mhm,
Um, but you get a lot of people who don't understand how the market works, and all they do, would do is all day for 5 years see, all these .com companies just rising, 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 and think, oh, I'm going to dump everything into this, and they end up, there's a dip, and they end up in a margin call, and they lose everything. So that's, a big part of it is, in my opinion, I look at it more as gatekeeping, but
mhm.
it's still
Who are you
less.
protecting? Who are you protecting when you do that? So if we're doing it for safety reasons or we're doing it for financial, what is this rule intended to do? Like, what is the why are we doing this besides gatekeeping? Like, are we protecting the market? Are we protecting the consumer? Are we protecting the public company? Who are we protecting with a $25,000 standby money on day trading? Like, who is that intended to help or to protect? If I go to Vegas, no one's going to tell me that if I'm just going to be playing slots or blackjack that I need to have $25,000 on the side, to continue to play. Like, that's because the way I
Look,
look.
here's part of the thing and how it works.
Mm-hmm,
Your trade isn't actually complete for several days. The
mm-hmm,
trade has to settle, and that takes a couple days. So, but the brokers will essentially extend credit to you because they know you sold your Tesla stock and at 1,000 or whatever, um, and so you're going to get $1,000 for that share you sold. So they essentially extend you credit. So
mm-hmm.
it kind of, I think some of that goes into like the credit laws and things like that as well. Um, but I don't know what they were thinking when it was implemented. I just know that a lot of it had to do with people like losing their just fucking life savings. When I was working for the broker dealer, I worked in the like debt and recovery.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when somebody would get into a position and the market would dip or just their stock or whatever, and we'd have to liquidate their accounts, and then call them up for more money. Like, hey, you had 100, you had deposited $10,000 and bought, on margin $40,000 worth of stock, that dipped is now only worth $5,000. We blow it out.
Yeah, but that
Kind of.
seems, but I wasn't buying things on margin. Like like what I said is I had like at one point I started off with 200, then I had 500, and this is all in the app. So the way the app works is obviously you hook up your bank account to it, and once you transfer that money to that app, if you decide to sell your shit, you have to wait like 5 trading days to get your money back. So if I bought on a dip and then I sold at a peak, I wouldn't see any of that. I would see that I just made this much money, but I could not physically transfer it into my bank account for 5 days. I could
Right.
continue to trade with that though. So as long as I
Was,
let
was
that
it full? Was it a full 5 days, or just wait until the
no
the
full
trade
no
settled?
well no. To actually have cash in hand was 5 days, but to buy your stock on a dip and then sell it on a high point. Let's say I put $500 in your stock and I sold and I made a profit of 15. So now I'm at 20, right? I'm at 2 grand. That 2 grand is available for me to trade immediately. But if I just want to say, you know what, it was a good run. It's just like I had a hot hand at a fucking craps game or fucking roulette table. You just can't cash your chips out. You have to wait 5 days for that. So you would like with that app, that was one of the catches for commission free trading, buying and selling, was that.
And I kind of think that you're allowed to like if you have $1,000 in a trading account and you're buying penny stocks, and you buy $5 worth of penny stocks of this one particular penny stock,
Mm-hmm.
and go back and forth in and out of that
Yeah,
repeatedly throughout the day. You can
right.
do that
No, you couldn't. I couldn't do it.
all the way up to the $1,000 point, except that you can't go over because you're dealing with cash only. It's a cash account. But you can't use the money. What would trigger the day trade? What was this? Like day trade pattern,
Yeah, day trade pattern.
day trade pattern rule, something
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't think that's right though.
No, but I don't have the app on my phone, but I'd pull it up. But
But yeah,
continue.
basically it's that you can't. If you go in and out of it, you can do that, but you have to be doing cash. So everything has to be um, settled. So if you had $1,000 of that stock
Mm-hmm.
and then sold it
Mm-hmm.
and then jump back into it and then jump back out,
Mm-hmm.
that's what would trigger the problem. But if you did it in smaller increments where you didn't go over your actual cash amount, that was fully settled. I believe that is what it how it triggers.
Yep.
And again, I would just for the record, the caveat: neither of us are financial advisors. Consult your own financial advisor. Yada yada. None of this is financial advice,
We
et
haven't even
cetera,
told him to
et
buy
cetera.
or sell anything. So,
Yeah,
but
but still, we're talking about like the rules and stuff. So I want to be clear that I'm not a financial advisor.
mm,
Nothing I'm yeah, nothing I'm saying is considered advice, etc. But
the
I
I
know that they implemented that rule under the guise of protecting the public. I know that when the bubble burst and the people like lost their life savings and shit, day traders were vilified. I watched that shit happen.
Now let me ask
So
you this though.
I was working for in the
Now
industry.
that's the next thing is I say. So the day traders we're talking about, that's not me sitting on my phone. The day traders we're talking about are almost like people running, like me running your account. Those are the day traders we're actually talking about.
Well, yeah,
Because
and you got to understand too that we didn't have those apps like that. We didn't have fucking smartphones
oh
then.
no, we
It
didn't.
would you. I mean, when I was day trading, I had 5 computers set up, um, and I had uh, I think 3 TVs with different financial channels going.
Just to look like you
So
knew what you were doing, yeah.
no, just because for the information. So I'd have all the information coming up. I know what people were talking about on the major financial channels, um, and so on. So I mean, and that was just my home setup. There are others that would actually subscribe to Bloomberg and go into offices and stuff like that did that professionally. Those are the guys you're talking about. But
Right, and those maybe those people that are in charge of, like, let's say I don't want anything to do with the stock market. I just want to hand somebody my money, and in 20 years I want them to hand me a lot more money than I gave them. Maybe for those guys, they should get rules on day trading. because they're going to be taking money that's essentially not theirs, and they're going to be winning and losing. But me taking my money and playing the market as much as I want with any capital I have, whether that capital is liquid or whether it was in a stock that I'm buying and selling off and on throughout the day, that's on me. That's like me going to Vegas. That's like me going to, a reservation. That's me playing my money against whatever odds, whatever information or whatever experience I have. Like that's, essentially when you put that $25,000 limit, like of assets of liquidity for me to be able to trade off and on, like that is a gatekeeping to keep me from competing with the elite, the big boys, and not a lot of us that grow up in the lower or the middle class have that ability to just pull 25 grand out of our ass. But if I turn around and I was setting up, like, if I was trading with other people's assets, and maybe we should make a regulation, if there isn't one already, that the minute that I start playing with your money and her money and his money, then I need a license. And when I need that license, if I'm going to day trade,
there is already that law.
Right. But me as an individual, like that cap should not be on me. That should not apply to me, especially like put it this way. If I'm playing big boy stocks where big boy money matters and I can actually influence the stock market by whatever means, then yes, I can afford that $25,000. But if I'm playing penny stocks, and like I said, this was one of the things. I didn't even get to the major reason that I was done, besides the fact I couldn't look at my phone 15, 20, 30 times a day. But the fact that I need $25,000 in fucking capital to sit somewhere that I can't even fucking touch while I take the rest of my...
No, you can touch it. It's just the value of your... And it's not like... It's basically you have to have on deposit $25,000 in value. So if you've got, like I said, $25,000 of...
Even if I had, let's say, $18,000 at Tesla, and then I had $7,000 that I was just going to play, I'm riding the boom up on Tesla, and the other $7,000 I'm going to play some startup fucking pharma company that's a penny stock currently. I'm going to buy low, sell high, buy low, sell high, and maybe I catch like 5 dips throughout the day. You know what I mean? I see what you're saying, but it doesn't matter. What I'm saying is the fact that I don't have $25,000 and I can't play that game because maybe the most I have in the app is $700.
Again, I think that I'd have to look this up or check with a financial advisor. I believe the rule is that you can trade in and out of a particular security as many times in the day and not trigger. I
got locked out for a week. 1 week I couldn't trade.
Were you trading your whole $700 or were you trading $5?
Does it matter though?
Yes. It absolutely matters. That's what I'm trying to explain to you, but you keep interrupting.
Okay, so
if you've got $1,000 in the account and you buy and sell this particular penny stock in $5 increments, or we'll say $10 increments because of my math, but you can do it 100 times. Wait, 100 times? 10, 100, yeah, 100 times in that day. And then you've used up that $1,000 in cash. Now you've got all these buys and sells that are currently settling. And that's where it is. But if you use that and you buy $1,000 of that stock, then turn around, sell that $1,000 of stock, you now have $1,005, and then you buy $1,005 of that stock and turn around and sell it, and you've got $1,010. Those are the ones that are going to trigger because you're not technically using your money anymore. Your money is still tied up in that first trade that hasn't settled yet.
I see what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but I would counter that and say at this point in time, every time that I traded, there was like a timestamp. How many shares I sold, what I sold them at, and and that was that. I like I said, I see what you're saying. I just feel that, and that's, like I said, that's not even my major reason. My major reason for getting out of trading, whether it was day trading or just regular trading, to me was like the whole it's market manipulation. Okay, so there were two stocks that I particularly like, two sectors I played a lot in. I played a lot in like pharma, biotech, and I played in regular tech stocks, and AMD was one of those stocks. And so I had bought into AMD. I when I first got on, they were at like $3 a share, and then they were up at like $6, and then they had just started dropping like what the Ryzen platform was going to be. They were making their comeback. They were coming for Intel, and I bought into that. And I told our counterpart, I said, dude, blah blah blah. Now, homeboy, I own an Intel product. He owns an Intel product. And he's like, well, I'm not really sold on Intel, blah, blah. I was like, dude, look at this shit. Look at this shit. Look at this shit. And AMD stock started climbing, right? And AMD stock at one point, it climbed up. I bought in at 6, and the next thing you know, I was continuously, I would put money in it every 2 weeks. I put more money, and I would penny trade stocks, but I would keep my money in AMD. And next thing you know, AMD's at like $30, right? But then you had like these fucking cocksuckers, right? And I understand they've been alive since fucking, Jesus was dead, since Jesus died. I understand these dudes. Like, I think it was, I don't know if it was Warren Buffett. It was some other guy. It was either one of the Rockefeller kids, or it was fucking Warren Buffett was like, well, based on my view of AMD's, liquid assets and, their money tied into like all their capital, meaning like their buildings, like chips that they have on the market being sold or stuff they're making, like, I'm downgrading the value of this stock from a double A to a single A, or whatever the fuck they basically they downgraded the value of the stock. And what that did is it caused people, because people buy and sell based on a lot of people trying to anticipate how something's going to do. So if some fucking piece of shit, and this is what, if some piece of shit was like, whoa, wait a minute, AMD was at $6, it was at $3 a share last year, and then 6 months after that they went up to 6 when they started dropping their speculation on, they started dropping they started leaking their Ryzen stuff, and all of a sudden now we're at 20, and they've taken up maybe. They went from 8% market share of CPUs to 12% market share of CPUs. Like, God, man, I should have got on that. Now all of a sudden it's at $30. Well, even though I have millions of dollars, billions of dollars, I don't feel like paying $32 a share. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to call up my fucking agent, and I'm going to have them schedule me a segment on Bloomberg or MSNBC, and I'm basically going to say, I don't think AMD is worth $32 a share. They did that with AMD. I watched them do with Intel. Intel was blown up a lot at the time. The only tech that wasn't blowing up really was Intel. Intel was kind of like just steadily inclining. AMD was getting up there. Intel was going up there. Nvidia was up there. The cool thing about Nvidia is they were paying dividends, so that was the main reason to stick around. But like, those guys would consistently go out there, and they would just basically shit talk the stock and be like, well, AMD is not worth that price. The most that I would pay, and this is me reading off of Forbes, off of Motley Fool, off of a lot of, stock forums. And these guys manipulated the price of the stock so that it would drop low enough that they could fucking pick up the stock where they wanted to pick it up and then ride it up. And I was telling my, our mutual friend, like, dude, this is bullshit. And he's like, yeah, they do that all the time. And I'm like, well, what the fuck, man? Like, I'm telling you, like, I don't know a lot about a lot of things, but I do play computer games. And I've had AMD processors, I've had Intel, and that's kind of where I drew the line. I got out at about $25 on AMD. So I got in at 6, I got out at 25, but I told homeboy, I was like, yo, dude, I know you have the capital. And I know, you've kind of shared what your portfolio is, but this shit is, and I think if you look at it now, AMD is well over 60. And this is a span of 2017 to 2021. But the fact that these people can sit there, right, and they could just they can they can sit there and they get an interview and an article, or they get on the TV and they say that the stock's not what it's hyperinflated for these reasons, and then people sell their shit and the fucking price drops, and then they fucking come in and scoop up all the shares that were sold or whatever's available so that they can have it. Like it was, to me, it was like, yeah, dude, like, it's not a game I can play, at least not now. And homeboy basically told me, like, yeah, dude, like, if you're playing this game on your phone just like me, you're playing for table scraps. That's what you're doing. You're playing for the breadcrumbs. You're not gonna make it big on doing this. And so to me, it was like me realizing that I have this awesome power in my hand. I can buy, I can sell. I could put limit buys, I could do limit sells, I could do all these things on my phone. I don't pay commission. There are a few rules. I have to wait 5 days to collect my money, yada yada yada. I gotta wait like till almost the end of February to get my stock tax document to claim capital losses and capital gains, whatever. It was fun, but seeing like how people can influence the stock, it was just like, dude, this is fucking corrupt as shit. This is bullshit. I'm out. I'm done. Y'all have fun with this. Which leads me to what you were talking about with these guys. So you were talking about beginning of the show how these guys, the Redditors, essentially, are basically playing the stock market. And I guess before I go further, what is your take on it? Should these guys be on Reddit?
Dude, it doesn't fucking matter if they're on Reddit or not. It's nobody's fucking business.
Okay, so are they manipulating the market? These independent consumers buying?
Not really.
Not really. That's not
what they're doing is they're saying what they're doing,
mm-hmm.
and other people are following. It's the same thing that happened, back in the day. And I'm sure that there's going to be some regulations that are going to come out about that, because that's what they did. That's why they had the pattern day trade rule. That's what it is, not day trade pattern rule. Pattern day trade rule. Yeah. So I mean, that's just. I don't even know what the topic is at this point, because I had a whole bunch of stuff to say about the day trading and the rules and the stuff. But
well, what you have the rule.
All I can think about now is how when I stopped day trading, I put all my dad's money in Apple and told him hold it, and he had like 3,000 shares of Apple. And 6 splits later, he's got no Apple because he listened to some dumbass financial advisor who said put it all in WorldCom, and dumped out of the position at Apple and put it all in WorldCom.
Who the hell's WorldCom?
So, exactly. MCI, remember that?
No, I know. I just
yeah.
How much money would your dad have if he would have stayed in Apple?
Let's see, 3,000 shares.
Well, you said they split 6 times, though, right?
Yeah, and it's multiple splits. I think 6 splits.
6, so 18,000 shares.
He'd have been a millionaire easily.
Like what is Apple worth right now per share?
Apple currently.
So we split once.
About $132.
$132 a share. So we split once. We're at 6. We split again. We're at 12. We split again. We're at 24. We split again. We're at 48. We split again. We're at 96, and we split again. We're at 192. So 192,000 shares times 132. Jesus Christ. Jesus. That's a lot of money.
Yep.
Yeah. Damn, dude. Damn. But what I wanted to know essentially was, do you feel these independent investors on their phone, first of all, do you feel they did anything wrong?
No.
I mean, that's like me saying, hey, I'm going to go do this. Now, what about when you have a group of people saying, hold the line, don't sell? Don't sell. Is that illegal? Should that be illegal?
Nope. the thing is, these guys found they found the perfect niche. They found that oh fuck, I don't remember which company it was off the top of my head that they first discovered, but they found all these shorted positions, and they saw that GameStop was over shorted, like 160% of their stock was shorted, not even enough. Um, and so they knew that if they bought and it would drive the price up, those companies, the hedge funds, would get into margin calls where they have to sell off some of the equities or contracts in the case of options, and they'll further drive the price up. And that's what we saw happen last week.
Mm. Well,
And the big reason about holding, because Friday was a settlement date, and for a bunch of options, so a lot of the companies that were in those positions had to either
pay for the stocks that they
yeah,
borrowed,
yeah,
basically.
cough up the cash. Well, it's not even pay for the stock that they borrowed. They had to actually buy those stocks to cover that. So they paid for them already. Do you understand how options work?
No, I understand how shorts work, though. So a short is basically where I don't have a stock, and I basically borrow the stock from you. And what I do is
Right.
I sell the stock to somebody else. I borrowed it from you. I sell it to somebody else. Let's say a month later, the stock actually goes up $5, right? So that stock that I sold, maybe I sold it for, I don't know, fucking $10, and now the stock's worth 15. So now I have $15 in hand, and I turn around and I basically give you your $10 back plus maybe 10%. So 10% of 10 is 11. So essentially, that one stock I made $4. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what the
So now on top of that, they were doing it as options,
Mm-hmm.
meaning they were doing that, but and options are my weak spot. I never got into options. Um, in fact, I never really got into margin accounts. I don't like playing with money that I don't have.
Mm-hmm.
But because fuck, man, I made those calls to people, like wiping them out. Like we just blew out their entire account. They still owed us $30,000 just from one fucking bad day in the market. And so yeah, I never got into margin accounts. I never got into options too much. But in a sense, they're paying for the option to do this at a certain date, and they essentially they just they were writing these put options for the short sells, and that's how it got way overextended, and that's why they got fucked when everything expired Friday. That's why they had to do that. Now I want to say one thing. I don't know. I don't believe that blatant and obvious about it, though. It's surprising to me that they're still limiting people's ability to trade in GameStop, but in the case of Robinhood. However, what happened was, with that trade activity, they don't, again, people have to remember, if I sell a stock, that doesn't mean the money's immediately in your account. That trade is still settling. But with that trade activity, they were basically running up a huge margin account of their own on this volatile stock with their clearinghouse. So they would need to cover that, and that's what happened. They stopped everything because they needed to be able to cover that shit, and that's why they had to raise another $1 billion on Friday to stay liquid, to be able to stay in business.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this:
So
should people, like, I talked about what I felt, but what do you feel about shorting stocks? Do you feel like betting against companies is something you should be able to do?
yeah, why not?
So you feel like you should be able to borrow something from somebody and then essentially bet that stock is going to fail.
Yep.
So
I don't see any problem with that. What I see a problem with are when the hedge funds try to do that stuff. They overextend themselves in this case,
Yeah.
and then counting on with the intent that that business is going to completely fail and be worth zero.
And I have to backtrack a second because I just realized the fallacy in what I said about 3 minutes ago. I borrowed the stock from you at 10. I sold it to somebody for 10. The stock goes up $5. I owe you $4. I don't owe you $4. I lost $4 on the trade. Now, if the stock had dropped, then
Well, no. Now you need to buy that stock at the $14 to give back to me.
correct. So I lost money. Well, at $15, the price difference was 5, and then you're still going to take that 10% hit. So essentially, 10% on the $10 is a dollar, and then so it's a $6 diff. So I lost $6 on that. Because I'm hoping that the value of that stock will go down while I'm borrowing it from you. So, but yeah, um, our mutual friend said that the whole point of shorting stocks was, I guess, to keep day traders in check. But I guess I'll have to do a little bit more research. I'll straight up admit it. I don't know too much about it, but to me, I think that as much as market manipulation affected my buys, I think it would affect shorts a lot bigger, because you could be, a fledgling company, and somebody could just talk shit about your company and how the leadership sucks, or how you went to China and they didn't give you any money for whatever
Right.
reason.
And there I mean, now there are ways, easy ways around the day trade rule, and that's just opening multiple accounts.
Well, I was talking about the shorting, like the fact that I can just devalue your company through misinformation or disinformation. To
Well,
me,
people can raise the value of a company with disinformation or false information,
also
and
correct.
that's still illegal. Both ways is illegal.
I agree. Both ways are illegal, but
If done with the intent to manipulate the market, I should say. So I mean, if
right.
I say Intel sucks, their chips are garbage and they're worth shit,
Hmm.
that's not. Yeah, you know what I mean.
But what I'm saying is, like, when it comes to shorting, I feel like if you're a company and maybe I want your stock because but like the whole shorting process, like the whole point behind the short is to allow someone to borrow stock and try to make a profit off the fact that the company is going to go down, and all you have to do is say a few bad things, and maybe that will affect investors, and they'll sell their shares and what have you, so the price goes, and that ends up hurting the company. Like the shorting of the stock, to me, a successful short ends up hurting, whereas like if you're just buying stock and like I said, we both agree it's illegal, that if you are spreading misinformation or disinformation to value a company or devalue a company, that's wrong. But um, in the case of shorting, I feel like shorting should be like I don't feel like shorting should be allowed, because it just
Why?
basically it gives you more of an incentive. Whereas if you were spreading those
So
rumors,
you're just assuming that everybody's bad people, because
no, I'm not.
it should, I'm for what's happening right now is we're seeing actual free market where
No, we are.
the small guys are saying, you know what, fuck this. They've been manipulating the market for however long,
True.
and we're going to make it hurt and make some money in the process.
True.
So they bought up the GameStop, they squeezed all the short accounts, and are holding.
Right.
Now, the smart companies, and some of them have done it already, are shorting GameStop now because it is at an outrageous price,
Right.
and when it eventually balances out, it's going to be nowhere near $300.
Right. And I'm not saying that what's going on between Team A and Team B shouldn't happen, but what I'm saying is that it shouldn't happen in the sense of you shouldn't be allowed to short a company. You shouldn't be allowed to borrow stock from somebody you don't own to
Why
try,
not?
because it like when it's like almost like, terrible analogy. Follow me for a second. It's like
No,
me
here,
talk.
if I have a bushel of carrots for sale, and you and I want $10 for this bush or $10 for this bushel of carrots, but you think, you know what? I think that's too much for this bushel of carrots. Um, I'm sure I can get them for $5 for a bushel in a week, and you then talk to me and say, I'm going to borrow this bushel of carrots from you, and I'll give you a bushel back plus 10% or whatever in a week.
Mm-hmm.
And then in a week, you'd be able to buy that bushel of carrots for $5, and you give me my bushel of carrots back plus my 10% or whatever. What is wrong with that? That is voluntarism. That is two people entering a voluntary contract
I agree, but
to conduct
that's
business.
not the reason I don't like it. The reason I don't like it is because the incentive to
There can
devalue.
be you can dislike something but not think it's illegal.
No, I agree. I totally, like, you're missing what I'm saying. Let's look at let's look at the most recent, like, this is the best thing I can come up with. So when we talk about like COVID and COVID deaths, like, if you had COVID and you got free of the COVID and then you died 15 days later by getting run over by a bus, you reported as a COVID death, because it that the fact that you had COVID within a 30-day period, it incentivizes the hospitals to report you as a COVID death because they get money. They get money out of the fact that you died and you had COVID. Okay? What it does when we're talking about shorting is, fine. Let's just say in a perfect world, the minute that you spread misinformation or disinformation, you're thrown in the fucking you're thrown in for 10 years. That is incentive enough to keep people from spreading false rumors and misinformation on what is going on with a business and why you should or shouldn't buy. Now, when we're talking about shorting, we're talking about you are betting that stock, that company will fail or will take a hit. And all it takes is fucking word of mouth. So you are now more incentivized. Yeah, you're incentivized to talk shit about a company on a regular basis for their stock to drop so you can buy on the dip and then ride it up. That is under. What I'm saying is, but you are more incentivized with a short to do that. So
what you're saying is what should be illegal is doing the misinformation, disinformation to deliberately cause a market swing.
Well, yes, but that's not happening.
And that I believe is already illegal.
It is, but it's not happening. Nobody. When's the last time like somebody went to jail for that?
Right, but you don't fucking ban short sales because some assholes. Dude, that's the same thing as banning all guns because some assholes fucking use the gun to go shoot up a school.
Well,
that's fucking stupid.
It's a little
no,
different.
It's the same thing.
It's a little different. All I'm saying is I just don't see. I don't see how you betting on somebody to fail should really, like, if you and I want to bet on the side, if you and me, like, you're big broker and I'm a big broker, and I'm like, let's put it on paper, let's make a fucking wager, just like if we're at the golf course, who can fucking get the lowest par, or the lowest amount of swings to fucking get the ball in the hole. That's one thing, but to put it on the market, like, I feel like there are more negatives than positives. And if we want to talk about, like, protecting the consumer, like, why don't we talk about protecting the little business? Because essentially, at this point, GameStop is a little business. There are many states.
They're not a fucking little business.
Well, they are, in the sense of, if you think of their business model. Their business model is you come into the store and you buy a console and you buy games. Outside of new console launches, outside of the PS5 and the Xbox 20 or whatever we're at now, nobody's coming into the store. You can download all the games. The only thing you're going to get at a fucking GameStop right now are fucking Funko dolls and Pokemon shirts. That's all you're getting there.
All this shit is completely irrelevant. GameStop is a publicly traded corporation. They're not a fucking small business. And I find it grossly offensive to compare them to small businesses.
No, I'm saying they are basically a small. Let me say that. Like, nobody can even go to a GameStop in a lot of fucking blue states. Like, GameStops are probably not an essential business. Most of the shit that you do, I download. I've got a fucking library of like 90 games.
Your point, sir.
My point is that they aren't going anywhere. Like, there are small businesses that are worth more than fucking GameStop on a real level. Like, on a real level, whatever you think a value, a share value of GameStop is, I guarantee you I can find a small business if I look hard enough that is worth more than GameStop is. So GameStop is not a small business in the sense of they have brick and mortar stores 20,000 places in the US, but they're just not worth that because
Your point, sir.
my point is that essentially they are a small business. They are a
They're
small
not.
business because their business model is obsolete. You don't need to go into a store to buy a video game. The only thing you need to go to a store for is to pick up a console. Once the next gen console has dropped, it will be like another 3 or 4 years before you actually need to go to a GameStop for anything.
They are not small businesses, and this is a hill I will fight and die on.
Well, I respect
Any publicly traded company like that cannot be considered a small business anymore.
I'll agree to disagree, but I will stand by. I think that the fact that you can short sell companies is, I'm not going to say it's illegal because it's not, but I feel like it should be illegal because the incentive to commit fraud is a lot greater with short sales than it is with normal stock trading. That's my whole point. Like the fact that there is a greater tendency for you to want to be fraudulent when it comes to a short sale, and you see this because what did they do? They shut down trading on Robinhood. They shut it down on TD Ameritrade. They shut down all these people for hours.
Did you not?
For hours, so they could not fucking buy more shares. So that these other big companies like Melvin and fucking I forgot who the other one, the one that owns Melvin, and Robinhood was owned by the same company that loaned Melvin the money to buy.
Right. So what you need to do is bitch about the FINRA and regulations and stuff that require that clearinghouse to have X amount of assets to do that. That, again, the fact that GameStop or that Robinhood is limiting purchases to or holdings to a single share, which there are workarounds for that, but that they're only allowing a single share, that's something that you should be pissed about.
I am pissed about it.
The fact that they had to halt trading is not, because they were legally required by the SEC to maintain a certain amount of value. All those trades back and forth were not considered available cash. Those still need to settle. If you sell a stock, it is not really sold for a couple days.
But here's the thing. Nobody was selling, Darian. What they were doing is you could sell, but you could not buy. So me on my Robinhood app, you on your Webull app, you on your Ameritrade app, you could not buy any more shares of GameStop. Even though at this point, like they were up to like $430 a share, I could not buy any. I could sell my position in that, but I couldn't buy anymore. What they were doing is they were buying time for fucking Melvin to get a loan from Joe so that they could fucking get more capital to buy more shorts. And that's essentially what they were doing. They were buying more stakes in shorts. So they had
no. If you're shorting a company, you want it as high as it'll fucking go if you know it's going to crash.
Yes, but you got to remember.
So dude, okay, you got to stop a second because you're speaking out your ass. You're listening to what people are yammering about on the internet, and they're not all right. What they needed the capital for was to be able to purchase shares to meet the obligations because they were hitting the margin calls. They were getting called because that debt ratio went so far out of whack because they had previously had it shorted at $10, $20, $50.
That is true.
That is what they were trying to get the money for.
But there was
they needed the money for.
There's a two-part to it.
Now,
let me explain this to you. So if you bought in, let's say
this from the person who's knowingly said they've got no financial experience.
Darian, just listen, man. Like I'm not insulting you. I've admitted you were right on a couple things. What I'm telling you is if you bought in at $5 on GameStop and now GameStop is at $430 fucking dollars and you own that whole margin between $5 and $430, that's a lot of fucking money. So yes, you have to borrow money to pay for that, but it would also make sense to borrow more money to fucking buy the shorts at fucking, where it is now. You have to, the thing is, when it comes
that's not what they were doing.
Well, you can tell yourself that. because nobody really knows. But what logic tells me
The
is
whole point of the squeeze was to get it so that they were forced to purchase the shares so that they're able to meet their liquidity obligations. And the thing that happened is the clearinghouses got caught in that too, because they were getting hit with that without trade settlements and things like that. So that's not what it was. The squeeze, the intent of the squeeze was to force them to have to spend all that money to stay liquid.
Now, if that was the case, why didn't everybody sell their shares after that happened? What is the current value of GME right now?
Okay, so that is because Friday was a call day. So like Thursday, I know Thursday was a bunch of talk about it. I didn't follow it too much because, I was in surgery. But Friday was the big option date. So holding it past that would force them to lose a lot of money through that process. The continue to hold is because there is still a lot of outstanding in that, and these companies are scrambling to keep dumping in money to stay afloat. And the intent now is to bleed them as much as possible. So keeping it going for about another week would be devastating to those hedge funds.
No, but you already said,
because they've got to take care of that on a daily basis.
I understand that. I totally and I agree with you. Part of the money they borrowed is to pay for that call. Now, if you are still trying to like salvage something, it is you versus and they've called themselves the retards. If you are trying to salvage what is left, like let's just say you're only borrowing the money to pay these people that are asking for their fucking stocks. Maybe it was a 2-week deal, it was a 1 month deal, whatever. Let's say you're only paying these guys for that 1 month, 2-week lease. Okay, you're not going to make money because at some point these Reddit retards, as they call themselves, they're going to dump their stock, and yeah, you might make that $5 where you bought in on your shorts down to like $1, and that's $4 considering how much money you lost from $5 to like $4.30 at most. But what they're also doing is they're buying more shorts. And
the reason the price is staying the fucking same is because when they get the shorts, that pushes the price down. It's still going up. Why? Because people are still buying and holding to squeeze them.
No,
they're making this painful.
I can't say with certainty that when you buy a short, the price goes down, but I do know that when more people want the stock,
when you do a short, you're essentially selling the stock. When you sell a stock, the price goes down.
Sure.
So
yes.
So the more short, if somebody came in with $1 billion in shorts on GameStop right now, it would drive the price down because that's 10% of their market cap. GameStop's got a $10 billion market cap right now. They're not a fucking small business. So if buying in right now, yeah, of course, it makes good sense. I know there are funds that are doing it. The ones that aren't getting hit by this, the ones that are in this, are just trying to stay alive.
I agree completely. But I'm telling you, when they borrowed the money, when they froze everything, it's not just them trying to get the capital to pay all these margins that they owed. It's also them trying to get more shorts established, because at some point, I don't think you disagree with me.
It is not that.
I think
stop the market. Robinhood did not say we're going to stop the trading because this is too much for our parent company. Robinhood stopped it because their clearinghouse, because I believe it's Apex, and it affected several other firms that use Apex as their clearinghouse. Why? Because Apex stopped the shit because they couldn't meet their fiduciary obligations based on the SEC rules. Okay. Now, they had to.
Can I just 1 second? So that thing you just said right there, that is exactly the fucking reason we don't need to fucking short sell. That is exactly right there. When you stop free.
If people were buying and selling,
if this was free
hold on.
market capitalism, you would not stop the shit. You would let the shit play out, bro. And that's not
Well,
capitalism.
that's why I say take it to the SEC.
Well,
they're the ones fucking shit up.
Fine.
If
Take
what
it to
you
the
need to
SEC.
do is get rid of that rule, and then if the company goes illiquid, all the people lose their money. Period.
But there's no. But the thing is that doesn't ever happen.
It has happened. It does happen, and it could happen even if people are buying. If people are buying the stocks and selling them with just cash only, they're still, or not cash only, but just, buying, day trading. That will put a strain on the clearinghouses because of those rules for the same reasons. In this case, Apex got hit because everybody was doing this. It was a run. They certainly weren't prepared for it. And they had to freeze it because they could not stay solvent. The clearinghouse themselves could not stay solvent, so they froze trading.
So what you're saying is we just need to make sure that clearinghouses, instead of having 25 million or 25 billion, they need to have 25 trillion in assets to be able to...
Sure, more regulations.
And you know how you get rid of that? You just don't allow people to short sell fucking stock. You don't allow people
to... It can happen on a rise, too. You can happen with people buying and selling, not shorting, just standard trading. The same thing could happen with high,
it's
that
different
type of volatility.
Because when you are selling, when you are buying and selling in a regular market, it's 100%. Like if you had a stock and I wanted to get in, if there were no shares available,
not. That's what I've been trying to tell you from the beginning of this episode. It is not the fucking same.
It is not the same, and that is the point. And I feel
no,
like
you don't. No, you're not fucking getting it, dude. If I sell a stock, it may show, I've got $1,000. I sell $1,000 worth of stock. It may show that I've got $1,000 in my account that I can trade with right now. But that does not mean does not mean that money is actually there and that it's settled.
I agree.
Now,
I agree.
The clearinghouses have different rules in that it's the brokerages that are saying, hey, yeah, we understand this is going to happen in 3 days, so we're going to let you trade again. The clearinghouses, however, they don't have that leeway. They have to stop and borrow more money to be able to make sure that they've got that cash on hand to be able to be liquid. It's not.
Darian,
I mean, don't get me wrong.
Darian,
I'm against.
I totally understand. What I'm telling you is that when we're talking about the normal sell and trade of a stock, we're only dealing with 100% of the stock shares. When we're talking about shorts, we're talking about 110%, 120, 140, 160. That
might be something to look at where a company is over shorted, and there may be more regulations coming for that, because frankly I'm not even sure how that make. And granted, I haven't had a non-drugged brain to think about it since all this was going on, but I'm not sure how that could even logically work. So yeah,
because think of it like this. Think of it like you and me do something. Yeah, you and me make a transaction and we short a stock. Like
no, I understand. Okay, let me rephrase. I understand how that works in the sense that they believe that it's going to go down. They buy a million shares or short 1 million shares with one. They borrow 1 million shares from one company, borrow another 1 million from another, borrow another 1 million from another, and so on. And that's how it goes.
Okay.
So I understand the process of how I can get that way,
right?
But I don't understand their thought process in how they meet those obligations in the end. Even if it got to zero, technically they couldn't fulfill that, So by extending like that, they're expecting the company to go to zero. Is what it comes down to.
That would be, I guess, and you know what? I don't know too much about stocks, but I know that zero. I know that zero is not a good number. Like zero's like not like the mathematical thing. Like something tells me that like when a company goes to zero, like you just lose anyway. Like
I have no idea.
You would rather have the company be 1 cent a share than zero. 0 cents a share, $0 and 0 cents a share. Like that would be something you would like. Something tells me that if I look at a graph where there's either exponential decay or exponential growth, that zero is an undefined, and that undefined is no bueno.
Okay, so what's your point?
No, my point is, you see where we are because of shorting.
So you think well, it's not because of shorting. It's because certain hedge funds over shorted and got squeezed.
And
that's what it is.
We stopped everyday Joes and Sallies.
We didn't. In fact, a lot of firms that didn't go through Apex were still able to buy and sell just fine.
Nope.
You're using these little piddly ass fucking. You're talking about specific firms like Robinhood, which are little dinky firms with that are fairly relatively new, that all go through the same clearinghouse that wasn't designed for that. Fidelity is one.
I agree.
They were just fucking fine.
I agree with that. I don't think that I don't
E-Trade, I believe, at least when my familiar, they had their own they did their own clearing. So I believe you would have been able to buy and sell still through them. I don't know for sure. But so it comes down to the clearinghouse, and that's what the problem was. And so the smart takeaway is, don't use those fucking apps like Robinhood and so on that go through, the same clearinghouse and whatnot. Go through a reputable firm that has their own.
So what you're saying is, I have to wait till I have even more money to play the stock market, because in a sense, so if I go through a reputable firm, some of those reputable firms, you're still paying commissions on trades. So I call you.
I don't believe you do through Fidelity.
Well, I'm saying, I still call you up. I'm like, yo, I want out of this. I want into that. Okay, well, that's going to be a 2% transaction. Okay, whatever. Just make it happen. Right? And
some firms perhaps. And I don't know of any firm that does not have a online trading option. But look at the time.
No, I get it. I get it. We're running short on time. But I mean,
we are out of time.
We're out of time, I guess. We're getting short. We're out of time. So since we're out of time, goodbye, ladies and gentlemen. No final word.
Sure, but the final word is, go to a reputable fucking company. Don't be a meme.
And with that being said, hopefully, our gracious overlord, Darian, will be joining us next week. Topic, once again, to be determined. We'd like to get your comments, get your likes, get your subs. Go ahead and do that shit now if you haven't done it already. What are we up to? 3 viewers still? We're up to 3 viewers, 3 solid viewers. Thank you for checking in on us, making sure we're okay. At some point, I think if we have 5 concurrent viewers, we will forcefully make Darian turn his webcam on, so we could just see him like writhing in pain. And then when he gets mad at me, he's like, "Ah, you don't know shit about shit. Fuck you and fuck your mom," and all that stuff. Does that sound like something, Darian? If we can get 5 likes on the video, you have to turn the webcam back on. Would you do that? Darian. Alright, he's muted. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for tuning in the show. Go ahead, like I said, leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment. We will get back to you. Fast as fuck. We're doing nothing here. We work. And we are just waiting to hear your questions or comments and bring them up in the next video. But that being said, I am Jake. And that is Drake. And thank you for tuning in the show. We'll see you next week. Take care.